The third part of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Indigo Disc, took place in the region of Unova, based on the area surrounding New York City. With the Unova region coming back into many people's minds due to this DLC, and the possibility of more Unova games coming soon, let's look back at the history of this region. Spoilers ahead for Black, White, Black 2, and White 2. Also, before we go on, if you like what you see, I'd like to request that you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing another lore deep dive on the Kanto region sometime next month, maybe around Pokemon Day, so if the idea of that excites you, then stick around. The furthest back we can go in this region's history is to the birth of the land itself, which, according to legend, was pulled into place by the Regis. Regirock, Regice, and Registeel under the guidance of Regigigas. After their work was done, the four giants made their way to the caves beneath Twist Mountain, where they would wait to be awakened once more. A number of Pokedex entries puts this at about 10,000 years before the events of the games. This is pure speculation, but it seems likely that there are multiple sets of Regis, as they have been sealed away in at least 4 separate regions, those being Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, and Galar, with each set seeming to have lain in place for hundreds, if not thousands of years. This should probably be discussed in its own video, though the theory definitely isn't mine, and I'm sure you can find other videos or discussions about it around the internet. Another set of Pokemon that tie themselves to ancient history are the forces of nature, Thundurus, Tornadus, and Landorus. According to legend, Thundurus and Tornadus have fought since the beginning of time, with Landorus existing to balance the two and keep them from destroying the world. The people of Unova built the Abundant Shrine as thanks to Landorus for protecting them. Professor Burnett believes that the three are not actually native to this plane of existence, but instead the Interdream Zone, a place where dreams and reality intermingle. The 3 Pokemon can be found there in their Therian forms, which are believed to be their true forms. This connection to dreams is a major through line for all the Unova games. It includes not only Burnett in her research, but also Dr. Fennel, the existence of Munna and Musharna, as well as the Dream Yard. The forces of nature are all known to travel, with all 3 appearing in Unova, Hoenn, and Galar. At some point, they also came to Hisui, where Landorus and a 4th force of nature, the previously unknown Pokemon Enamorus, transformed it into a fertile land, being worshipped by the people there as gods. Enamorus seems to be a female counterpart to Landorus, as not only are they connected through that myth, but they're also both linked to fertility and punishment. Despite all the legends predating this one, the history of Unova as a region can be traced back to the War of Truth and Ideals, about 3,000 years prior to the events of the games. Legend tells of 2 brothers who gained control of a powerful dragon, often referred to as the Original Dragon. Likely this dragon came from space aboard an asteroid, landing in the giant chasm near Lacanosa Town, as the chasm is both stated to be the source of Kyurem and home to a number of Pokemon determined elsewhere to be of extraterrestrial origin. The 2 brothers wished to do great things, but couldn't agree on which path to follow. To focus on their ideals and compromise the truth, or focus on truth to the detriment of their ideals. In the end, this conflict caused the Original Dragon to split, forming 3 dragons: Reshiram, the Dragon of Truth, Zekrom, the Dragon of Ideals, and Kyurem, the husk created from what was left over the Original Dragon after this split. The 2 brothers continued their battle until one prevailed. Exactly which one succeeded is dependent on the version played. However, as Hilbert is apparently referred to as the hero of truth in Pokemon Masters, and in that same game N is given Zekrom, I'm going to treat the events of Pokemon Black as the default. Whichever hero won, he, alongside his dragon, built the Relic Castle. Eventually, the victorious dragon would come to live at the top of the Dragon Spiral Tower, while the other reverted into its stone form. As for Kyurem, the boundary Pokemon would remain in the Giant Chasm, where it will become a bogeyman spoken of in legend by the city's people. Another ancient building sitting in Unova is the Abyssal Ruins, a great temple buried beneath the waves of Undella Bay. It's implied to have ties to the Relic Castle, given the number of items sitting within it that share the location's name. According to glyphs written, the castle once belonged to a great king who fought hatred and pursued peace. Intrepid Pokemon theorists have speculated that the name of this king was likely Harmonia, but there is still much about the Abyssal Ruins that we don't know. Meloetta was a Pokemon known to bring happiness to the world through its song and dance. In this time, it was in what's called its pirouette form. However, as darkness fell upon the world, Meloetta lost its ability to bring happiness. it lost its pirouette form, its ability to dance, its fighting type, and its favorite song, the Relic song. A third reuse of the Relic title in this game seems to imply to me that this happened during the time of the Relic Castle and the Abyssal Ruins. While Meloetta forgot the song though, the world didn't forget. The song became a legend in its own right, being passed from musician to musician in hopes that someday, Meloetta could hear it again and once more bring great joy. Cabalion, Terrakion, and Virizion are a group of Pokemon known for protecting the defenseless during human conflict and expansion. Their exact origins are unknown, and it seems like they've been active for centuries. They were first encountered in Unova, but have since been introduced in Hoenn, Galar, and Paldea as well. Paldea also introduced the future Paradox versions of these Pokemon in Iron Leaves, Iron Boulder, and Iron Crown. A fourth sword does exist, however. Keldeo was a Pokemon born on the Moor of Icarus. He was orphaned when its home was burned down due to human conflict. When the swords found the young Pokemon, they took him in and trained him as one of their own. He stayed with them for many years before running off one day, disappearing into history. They wouldn't be reunited until the events of the Black and White games, when the swords would gather together and give Keldeo his signature move, Secret Sword, in doing so also granting him access to his more powerful Resolute form. Victini is, fitting to its name, a Pokemon said to bring victory to every battle. Its history isn't very well known. However, the Pokemon is found in the Liberty Garden, where, assumedly, it was left there by the family who purchased and named the island 200 years before the events of the games. Now we turn our gaze from nameless legends to a man, Ghetsis Harmonious Gropius. Ghetsis was a man of ambition, believing that he could use his power and natural charisma to conquer the world. His plan was to create an ideological revolution in Unova, where people would give up being Pokemon trainers, leaving him as the only person who still wielded the power of Pokemon, and leaving room for him to conquer the region. But he knew that he couldn't serve as a proper figurehead to this group. Instead, he adopted a trio of orphans, Anthea, Concordia, and Natural, also known as N. N was abandoned in the wilderness as a child, where he was raised by the Pokemon who lived there. Due to his upbringing, N learned to speak the language of Pokemon. Ghetsis took this flower child and used his influence to manipulate the boy. He surrounded N with Pokemon who had been mistreated by their trainers, causing a hatred for humanity to brew in the boy. N hoped to create separate spaces for humans and Pokemon to live apart, thus causing the most freedom for both groups. It was with that goal that he, alongside Ghetsis, founded Team Plasma. Most of those who joined Plasma were idealistic, believing in the cause. They began traveling the region, spreading the word of the Pokemon liberation, and using any Pokemon they quote-unquote liberated to help build up an underground fortress to ensnare the Pokemon League. Among those Pokemon was a Purloin that was once under the ownership of a young girl from Espertia City, causing the ire of her older brother, Hugh, who we'll get back to later. In the background though, it was clear that many in Plasma were power-hungry, and served Ghetsis' ambition directly. Among these was a scientist named Dudley, who ran the P2 laboratory on Route 17. He awakened an ancient Pokemon from a fossil, and turned it into a cyborg, seeking to create the most powerful Pokemon in existence. However, this was cut short when N cancelled the project, believing that Pokemon lost their beauty when marred by science. Despite this, Dudley continued his experiments, creating the artificially modified Pokemon we know as Genesect, as well as the 4 elemental drives that can change its typing. And it is finally here and now when we introduce the heroes of Unova. The first heroes are Hilbert and Hilda, natives of Unova's Nuvema town, who are given Pokemon by Professor Juniper alongside their 2 best friends, Sharon and Bianca. Pokemon Masters EX seems to prefer using Hilbert as the protagonist for these games, with Hilda being relegated to her NPC appearance on the Battle Subway. Over their journey to become Unova's champion, they wind up befriending N as well, who eventually reveals his true nature to the player. They battle both N and other members of Team Plasma a number of times before things come to a head at the Dragon Spiral Tower, when N managed to capture one of Reshiram and Zekrom. He went forward to defeat Alder, the champion of Unova, and claim the spot for himself. After taking either the Black or White Stone, depending on version, from the Mastery Museum, The player character went to the League in order to challenge N. The 7 Sages, the 7 leaders of Team Plasma, tried to stop them, but were distracted by the timely arrival of Bianca and 7 of the region's gym leaders. Upon entering the presence of N's dragon, the dormant stone awakened into its true form, and once again, the 2 dragons face each other in battle of ideals versus truth. But, in the end, good prevailed as the hero defeated not only N, but Ghetsis as well, with the latter getting arrested by Interpol. The player character went on to help Interpol agent Looker arrest the other 6 sages, and then left Unova in order to find N, who had released his Pokémon and gone on a journey of his own to reflect on his past and his future. And life in Unova went on. Bryson and the triplets left their posts as gym leaders to make room for Marlon and Sharon to fill in their roles. Iris, formerly half of Opelucid City's gym team, rose to become the region's new champion after defeating the previous one. Victory Road was destroyed in a landslide, causing the League to create a new path for challengers to follow. Bianca returned to New Vebatown, where she became Professor Juniper's assistant. Cities changed, buildings fell, and a new force rose to threaten Unova: New Plasma. After his escape from Interpol with the help of the Shadow Triad, Ghetsis continued his plot to take over the world, but without the idealistic narrative it formerly ran. Ghetsis chose to remain in the shadows, instead handing over leadership to Zinzalin, one of the 7 sages, as well as a scientist by the name of Colress. Meanwhile, another faction of former Plasma Grunts had a very different plan. Doffing the uniforms they once wore as a sign of their devotion to Plasma, this group, under the leadership of former Sage Arude, began trying to undo the damage they had done at Ghetsis' behest, including challenging his new Team Plasma. While not a part of this same group, another former sage named Gorm also seemed to have reformed. The other 3 sages have not been heard from since their initial arrest. 2 years after the fall of Team Plasma, a new set of heroes were given the chance to shine: Nate and Rosa, a pair of new trainers from Aspertia City. Going back to Masters EX, that game's version of the characters uses Rosa as the protagonist, with Nate instead being based on the Battle Subway NPC. They gained their Pokemon at the same time as their childhood friend, Hugh, who held a grudge against Team Plasma ever since they stole his sister's Purloin, as mentioned earlier. The two embarked through the 8 gyms of Unova together, with the goal of growing strong enough to fight Team Plasma and find Purloin. After the hero defeated Drayden in a gym battle, Team Plasma attacked Opelucid City, stealing a DNA splicer held in the city's gym. The player chased them to the giant castle, where they, alongside Hugh, faced the leaders of New Plasma, saving the Purloin, which had since evolved into a Lipard, and confronting Ghetsis. Ghetsis attempted to slowly kill the hero using Kyurem's Ice Breath, while Unova itself froze over, but they were saved by the timely return of N and his dragon, who blocked the blow. However, using the DNA splicer, Ghetsis is able to neutralize the dragon and fuse it with Kyurem, creating either Black Kyurem with Zekrom or White Kyurem with Reshiram. But even then, the hero manages to defeat Kyurem, splitting the Pokemon once more, and then Ghetsis, once and for all. After defeating Champion Iris, the hero finds N at the ruins of his castle, and the two do battle, which our hero once again wins. Finally releasing his draconic companion, N seems to find peace, remaining in Unova. Sometime later, Cyrano, a noted Pokemon researcher and longtime friend to Paldea's Clavel, founded Blueberry Academy off the coast of Unova. They also construct a terrarium deep beneath the waves, where the students can experience and learn about Pokemon not native to the Unova region. Due to his ties to the Paldea region, it becomes a sister school to either Uva or Naranja Academy, depending on the version. This is the school where Karma and Kieran from the Teal Mask learn. And that, I think, is where we're going to end off this video, as we're starting to dip our toes into the events of the Indigo Disc. I hope you enjoyed our 3-part look into the events of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I hope that you stick around for more Pokemon content in the future. If you want me to talk about the actual events of the Indigo Disc or the epilogue, let me know in the comments. I'm not sure if I want to do that or not, so it'd be nice to have your guys' input. Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.